we're looking at our first conversation. And I actually asked AI for this because I was like, I don't really know what to talk about in my first conversation. So I said to ChatGPT, tell me what the first conversation should be. And it said the value of tradition versus innovation in modern society. I want to start off with a little story. So I was brought up by my mother, and she used to take me to school. We were very close. And she used to wear a sari. She was the only one in a traditional Indian sari going to school in this kind of place that I grew up in, where I still am actually. And we used to have conversations about tradition. She'd always tell me these traditional things to do as a young Indian heritage lad, who's being brought up in Britain. And I was always rejecting this sense of tradition. And she would always tell me everything, and I'd always be like, well, what does she know, right? Recently, after doing many years of coaching, what I've realized is a lot of these courses that I've spent thousands of pounds learning about life and learning how to better myself and others, and boils down to, if you boil it all down through all the fluffy words, a lot of it boils down to what my mother taught me when I was 4 and onwards. Stuff that I rejected. So it kind of got me thinking that it's surprising how as human beings we walk the earth and we don't really listen. We don't really absorb what people are saying. And sometimes it doesn't hit you until many years later. A lot of the stuff my dad taught me, which I thought was Dad was being quite strict. As a kid, I thought being way too strict. I kind of realize now why he did it. And I kind of respect a lot of what he did tell me to do, because it kind of has helped me. It's formed me as a character later on in life, right? So that's my little story about Mum and Dad. So let's talk about the value of tradition versus innovation in modern society. So how do traditions shape our identities and our communities? And it's really interesting. So I'm someone coming from a heritage of India. I came here when I was 3, I think, into UK. And I was naturalised as a British citizen. And then I grew up in the sort of non-traditional Indian sense, Indian sense of home, but I basically grew up in the British culture, and pretty much Indian tradition formed me at home, and English culture formed me at school. And then when I went to university, it was very much the British Asian culture. So I had a lot of Asian friends for the first time. Although I had a few back home, they weren't that. We didn't see them all the time as much. Maybe when I was little, my teens, I had a local Asian guy I used to hang out with. His culture was more Pakistani, and I was Hindu background, so it was interesting. And then I met a lot of Sikh friends, and I met a lot of Hindus, met a lot of Muslim, met a lot of mixture of cultures. A Japanese friend was my best friend at uni, and that all changed me as well. How do traditions shape our identities? Well, for me, the Indian culture shaped my identity at home, and then the British culture shaped me outside, and then at university I kind of took on a kind of mixture of the two. Learned more about our culture, but I also learned from my peers, and then I also learned more about British culture. In my 20s, I guess I was more of a westernized person, kind of rejecting a lot of Indian culture. And then in my 30s, I kind of went back to kind of finding that again. And now I'm a bit slightly older. I'm kind of focusing more on both cultures, really. It's like I see myself more as a global person, and still respect my Hindu tradition, but I'm kind of more spiritual now. So I respect a lot of cultures, and I kind of take what I can from different worlds. Even ancient worlds. So my 3 cultures that really connect with me the most are Hinduism, like Indian tradition and culture, and also the ancient Viking culture, the Swedes and the Danes, so Scandinavian culture, and then the third one is Japanese culture. On one of my company logos that I've created, there's a flag. The guy's carrying a flag, and on the flag there's a symbol, and I created that symbol myself to reflect something that almost honors those 3 cultures and what they mean to me. So yeah, how does tradition shape my identity? Well, it shaped it a lot, yeah? It's almost like a full circle. You start off almost rejecting the tradition and then you come back to it. It's almost like they say you become your parents, right? So I've kind of become more like my father's values as I got older and my mother's values. In terms of tradition shaping communities, yeah, I mean, the Asian community is very much steeped in tradition, linked into religion and spirituality, whereas the British culture is very connected to various traditions and themes and things that happen in British culture, British community. And what role does innovation play in progress and advancement? So I haven't prepared for any of these questions, I'm just answering them as I go along. Well, innovation is very important to us progressing as a society. Since we've had technological revolution, we've really gone fast, haven't we, over the last 100 years? I think computers were invented, pretty much came to life properly in the 60s, I believe. Although they had kind of basic computers, I believe, in the Second World War as well. And then in the 60s, 70s, they really came to the fore. And then I remember my dad's friend, when my dad came to UK, Dad went into accounting, and my dad's friend decided to go to America to study work in computers. And I think it was the time when Apple was coming out. So it's like in the 70s, Steve Jobs and all that. And obviously did really well because the computers became really big in the 80s. They have that law, don't they, that says that technology kind of advances double every 6 months or something. Murphy's Law, is it? Yeah, innovation is really important. I mean, especially AI at the moment. See how powerful AI is and how it's really rapidly changing people. Someone was saying the other day that we could see the first billion-pound business just run by a few people because of AI. Now that's a bit of a grand statement, but it's technologically possible. I mean, you could sort of shut down a lot of industries. A lot of young people are innovating heavily. They're building, like people like Mr. Beast are building like massive corporations, and he's only in his 20s. So yeah, it's possible. Innovation plays a massive role in progress and advancement. You know, if you don't have innovation, where are you going to go? They do say if you don't innovate, you kind of die out. Instances where tradition and innovation conflict, and how can we navigate those tensions? And please, if you have any thoughts on this, please leave your comments in the comments. All right. Instances where tradition and innovation conflict. The problem we have is often innovation kind of takes us to places. In some extremes, it kind of rejects tradition, right? And when it's kind of for work, when it's to do with companies and, useful things and ways of doing things, it's useful. And sometimes traditional routes are not like always the best, right? However, when it forms part of identity and community, the traditional part, then, it's not always the best. Like aspects of family life, for example, have already been sort of messed around by innovation. So you've got the phones, ping, 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 always on. Families now looking at their phones at the table instead of being present with each other. You have people who are more likely now to have relationships online and friendships online than actually going out and meet people in real life. And they have difficulty now, a lot of young people communicating with each other, forming relationships. I think they said that the birth rate's actually going down because people, I think in their 20s and 30s, are having less relationships, more single people, less birth rates declining as a result. So you could argue that that's got a lot to do with innovation. It's got a lot to do with technology, that everyone can now go online and sit in online communities more. So 10, 20 years ago, we had the chat rooms kind of evolved now to more of the social media rooms, the Discords, the streaming platforms, the Twitches, the YouTube Lives, stuff like that, where people will just chatter away, for hours and hours and hours with their favorite streamer versus just having conversations with each other in real life or talking to their families, So yeah, there's a balance, but that could be a conflict. And how do you navigate the tensions? Well, I don't think we should really have technology built around this whole feedback loop where you're getting dopamine. It's almost like a drug, right? So I'll go online and I'll scroll through my YouTube shorts and each of it gives me a hit of dopamine. Or I'll write a comment and I'll keep checking back if they liked it or not, because the little like gives you dopamine. And it's not a good dopamine because you could be stuck in that everlasting loop of social media, everlasting loop of checking your phone, which is not a cool thing at all. Can we find a middle ground where tradition and innovation complement each other? Yeah, I think so. I think almost like compartmentalizing family life and friendships and stuff like that. To obviously you haven't made a good decision hunching over like this in front of camera, but I've made the choice. So I'll finish today's episode. Yeah. So this is a classic example. Technology. I'm shooting a video on my camera versus traditional route of maybe sitting properly, right? Middle ground where tradition and innovation complement each other. Yeah, I think it's to do with sort of family values, and I think it's to do with like social dynamics. I mean, we are social beings as humans. We are made to hang out with each other. These YouTubers who sit at home and stream all day, and then all their fans are sitting at home watching them stream all day, and they're communicating by the YouTuber might be talking, or the Twitch guy, or whatever, girl, and the young people are in the background just typing away furiously. It can't be good for you, right? Streaming for 8 hours and hours and hours doing that. And they come home from school and all they do is log on, and that's all they're doing for like several hours. And it's a dopamine hit, right? The streamer may call them out and say, hey, how's it going? And that's like gives them a dopamine hit. Or they pay him some money and then he's like calling the names. It's all configured the system to give you a dopamine hit, and it's just not real life. It's not like going out when I was young. In my teens, I used to go out and play football, and I used to get the neighborhood kids together, and whoever's around, we get them together and we play a match, building team spirit. Dealing with rejection when we lost. Console the younger kids and make them see that it's not always about winning. It's about playing the game, enjoying it. The younger kids, when we were older kids, and we used to like mentor them, show them the way, teach them values, and make sure that they didn't mess around in the neighborhood. And when other kids came around our neighborhood sort of trying to cause trouble, we'd stick up for everyone. Respect the old people who lived around us, and I would always sort of uphold integrity and morals. Better to have respect than it is to go for the quick buck and take advantage of people, right? Not take advantage of people less fortunate or weaker than you, or older than you, or too old, So always have respect for elders and do the right thing. And that's what I did when I was growing up. Now everyone's on their iPhones, they're on their iPads, they're playing PlayStation all day long. And it's difficult. I mean, even I play the odd game of Call of Duty, but you can just get sucked. The way it's configured, you can get sucked into that for like hours and hours and hours, and it's a dangerous thing. Now I kind of look at it and I say, do I really want to be sitting on this thing for 5 hours or even an hour? It's like time is the only thing you can't get back in your life, right? Have a think. Is there a middle ground? Yeah, I think family values, traditional values, social dynamics, friendships should all be configured in a way that of tradition, because there's a reason why it's been done sort of thousands and millions of years, because we are a tribal people. We used to hang around fires and storytell with each other and bond with each other, and the uncles used to take the young men under their wings and teach them the ways, and teach men to be men, and women would have a similar progression with their aunties and uncles, and aunties and the mothers, but also their fathers too. Good way, really. But nowadays, I sort of feel that everyone's sort of tucked away in their houses and not really connecting with each other. So I guess by this topic, we can initiate some meaningful conversation to encourage you all to talk about this. Talk about your own beliefs. Talk about your experiences of fostering debate, respectful debate, dialogue with each other. And I'd really like to have a channel where people are respectful in the comments and there's no fighting, So the intention of the channel is to have conversations in corners and just talk to each other. Irrespective of what belief you have or political system you follow, there is no reason for people to fight. Good conversations with each other, having interesting conversations, have debates. No reason to fear each other. There's no reason to hate each other. We are all human beings after all, right? We're all the same, really. That's the first episode of today. Hope it's short enough, because I know I'm not allowed to go over 15 minutes, so I don't know how long I've recorded for. Probably gone over that, so I'm going to have to edit this in some way. But I hope you enjoyed that. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.